Alright, so we made it back home. No breakdowns on the way home. We hit some rainstorms that washed some of the mud off and piled up on the truck and run down, and no muddy in here. But damn near every day we had rain on this journey. Today there was just a couple of sprinkles that hit my windshield before I left the valley coming over the mountain to the coast here where I live. So almost nothing today. And yesterday we were in Bend and we wanted to stop at Cracker Barrel and try that out because we'd never been there. And there's a storm that came in there and just dumped thunder and lightning, dumped water everywhere. Power went out to like 20,000 people. All the street lights were out, chaos everywhere, businesses closed. So needless to say, we still have not tried a Cracker Barrel. So we got some more clutch issues. So what we got here is, when I went on my trip to Utah, I thought that the bearing was going out because it was hard to shift. And yeah, get this thing to move. There we go. That bearing right there, which seems to turn both ways fine by hand, when I would take the clutch cover off and I would rev it up, the belt sometimes would spin and not stop, and other times it would stop. So it seemed to me like it was that bearing going out, because I've never had an alignment issue as far as the side to side. So I was checking that out. I took some pictures of the alignment. It's maybe a touch close to one side. I'll look at it again when I put it back together. But then I took the clutch off to examine it more, and I'd have to take it off to change that bearing anyway. And I turn it upside down and do an inspection. See if I can get this in the camera. All right. I don't know. Can I get it on there? Ooh. Right there. See that roller? Can you see how it, yeah, you can. See how it's flat? That's got a whole bunch of flat spots in it. And they all have it going all the way around. It wore a little bit of the weight. So those started sticking, obviously, at some point. And wore some flat spots in it. So you got that worn out. You got the bearing worn out. And a lot of people recommend don't change these because they don't last and you'll just be right back into the clutch again later. Plus, the tools to take this apart are expensive. I already own them because I've taken it apart before. So I know I've seen these before online. I started searching and I couldn't find them for this thing anyway. So I wasn't sure if I was going to rebuild this to have for a backup one or what. Anyway, everything said, time to buy a new primary clutch. So there we go. New primary clutch. The primary clutches, when you go to buy them, they don't come with the spring or the flyweight. So it's important that you understand that. You'd be pretty upset if you spend almost $600 depending on where you buy it from. I got mine from Hunter Works. And it shows up and it didn't have that. he has a pretty good write-up on his, and it tells you that it doesn't have the fly weights, doesn't have the spring. And apparently, if you go to the dealer, it's the same way. So, since my fly weights are kind of scored, maybe you can see that in the picture. If I can get the light right. I don't know. You might be able to see a little there, a little bit blurry. But anyway, they got a little bit of scoring on them. I mean, they might be okay for a backup, but if you're putting a brand new one in. So I have the Dalton clutch kit in here. So I got a hold of Dalton, and they sent me new fly weights. So you get this new one, and you've got to take it apart. You just unbolt this cover like I did here. That spring will be in there, and I have the whitewasher spacer in there, and it's just like this. So then if you have a spring or a clutch compressor, which I just use this, and I put a bunch of washers on the top, compress that, and you can unbolt these, take that lid off, and get you to your spring. I already undid these so that I can take that lid off. This spring will get transferred over here. They send a new white washer if you buy it from HunterWorks. That just limits your top end, lessens the chance of blowing a belt on the high end. And another item is, I had this apart before, and the miles were kind of low. And I read that if you have any discoloration on these bushings, see if I can get that where you can see it. Might be able to make that out. Kind of goldish. Well, they're supposed to look like this. This is kind of gray. There we go. You can see that one real good. So they say if that gray's gone, that you need new bushings also. So that's just one more thing that tells me you need a new clutch. But like I said, when I took this thing apart before, because I was suspicious the spider nut had backed off, the bushings in here had some of that gray worn away, but it had such low miles on it at that point. It's like, I'm putting it back together. Uh-oh. I just realized something. Always mark your parts before you take them apart. You'll see on this one, I have an X and an X and an X. I forgot to do that on this before I took that cover off. There should be a factory X on it. It's right there. So I'm going to have to assume that this was lined up with the other factory X's, which at the moment I'm not seeing. Oh man. Okay, that was stressing me out. I couldn't find it. Thought, what am I going to do now? So right there, I don't know if it'll show up in the camera, there's an X stamped on it. It also happens to have this blue on here. This has blue, and there's an X. So that's where I'm going to put it. Alright, so before I do that, I was also going to show you these fly weights with Dalton. Put this over here. See if you can still see me. These fly weights for the Dalton clutch have got these little weights you put in there. And they have 3 different options. And they have a whole write-up depending on the terrain you ride, the size of your tire, how much weight, things like that. So it looks like, for the most part, the kind of stuff I do, I'd go with this steel rivet. Goes in there, and then I'm going to put 2 long set screws in the end here. I've already got on here 2 of them in the clutch, and they say to put all of the rivets the same way. Don't put one in this way and another one in that way. Keep them all the same way. Helps keep the balance of the, when you got the centrifugal force. And then you take them and you have to put them in a vise. And squeeze them down. You have to get them down so that it's under, what is it? 0.500. That way it clears the cavity inside the clutch here. So, on my vise, you gotta be careful that you don't catch the lip of the flyweight and damage it, and they also tell you not to over squeeze them. You can damage the rivet. So you put that in there, get that down where that goes, put that over. So you got to have a pretty good vise. Mine's barely adequate for it. It takes about all the vices got to squeeze this steel rivet. So there's a gold steel rivet, there's a silver steel rivet, and there's a silver aluminum rivet. All different weights, of course, for different applications. So once you squeeze them down, if you need to, you can peen them also. So what I've been doing is setting it here on the edge of my flat spot here, and just because of the teeth in here, I was taking that. It's handy. Earlier when I did the last one, my son stopped by for a minute, so you hold that off of there, hold that like that, and just give that a little tap. So all I'm doing is these little highs on here, because of the teeth, I'm just knocking that down. Probably don't need to, but it makes me feel a little better. I know that they're not going to be in the way and catch the side of the clutch. And then if you go do some riding and you find out that this isn't the right rivet for you, you have to drill these out and put in a different rivet. Not a big fan of this portion of their design, to be honest. I wish they had something that just screwed into the end, like they do with the rivets. I mean, the rivets in here, it's nice because you can be out on the dunes or the trail or something and it's easy to switch. But yeah, I'm way under. And they say that you can also take them and put them in there. Get this a little closer. You can put them in here and swing them up towards the top to make sure that there's plenty of clearance in there when these swing up. You don't want them to hit anything. Okay, so we already got those two in. So you loosen these, and these come with the clutch. It's got these new bolts in here. So you get those loosened, and the Dalton weights have these little little fiber washers that go on the side. I'm not sure what they're made of. And you just put one of those in there, slide that weight in, wiggle it around a little so you can get the bolt to slide through there. There it goes. Part way through. Get this one on the other side. I just put light pressure on the bolt, move that washer around until it clears, pop out the other side. So make sure that all these bolts are going the same direction. They're going that way, which would be clockwise. The nut is up, the bolt is going that way, it's going clockwise. So then you just snug them down. It's a lock nut on there. You actually want the bolt to turn a little bit. I don't know if you can see it in this one. Get you a little closer. So the bolt actually can spin a little bit. So it's free. You know that you're not squeezing anything. You can see the little fiber washers in there. Here's the brand new one. So I'll just tighten that down to that point. I got my new white washer on there. And I need to take my spring. This is the Dalton spring. Goes in there. Take this and line up my X and my X, which is that way. Now all I gotta do is I gotta set up this in the vise. Let me set this back on here. There we go. So, like I said, mine's a homemade job, so I just take this, set that in the vise, snug her down, take this thing, slide her down on there, and then I got this stack of washers. Where was my big one? Should be a big one here. Oh, there it is. The only reason to stack the washers is because I've got the bolt too long. I don't know why I haven't trimmed it down yet. I don't really see any reason I would need it to be longer. And then you just get this nut on the top. Doesn't want to start. There it goes. And you just turn this nut. All the way down. Boring, boring, boring. Make sure I still got the X and the X. And then you just screw this thing down, and I'll tighten up the compress that spring so you can line up all your bolts. And just run that down. That squeezes that a little bit, and I can pull this up, and then I can bolt this, because if that, just to show you, if that's back to off, okay, it's loose now. That goes up to about there, but then you're counting on these aluminum threads to suck this thing down, which you could do, but it's a lot safer to have this thing sucked down, and then you can screw these in all the way and then torque them to the proper spec, which at the moment I don't remember, so I'll have to look that up. So you just screw all these down, then torque them, and once again make sure your X's are lined up, and be sure to write your own X on everything before you take one apart. So let's get those down nice and hand tight. And it takes a 3/8. So there we go. So now I just got to torque those, tighten these. Oh, and these take a 3/8 here and a 1/8 inch, I believe. Yep, 1/8 inch Allen on this side. Put those together like that. And you just give that a little snugging. That looks good. Okay, so let's go around to all those, get those snug down, torque those, put my 2 long set screws in there. This is the setting I'm going with. And then I'll scuff this up, wipe it down with a rag and some rubbing alcohol, which is something I wanted to mention. I'm suspicious because I had found on the internet some videos where people were using spray cleaners on this stuff. They'd scrub it and they'd spray clean it real good and get it all cleaned off. And I tried that one time. And I think that spray stuff got into my bearing, washed some of my grease out, and got into these rollers that are under this, and just any sort of lube that was in there washed out. Because I blow this thing off regularly. I keep it up on the maintenance as far as that. So it's the only thing I can think of. So I'm never going to use a spray again. I'm always going to use a rag with some rubbing alcohol. Scrub this, get rid of the sheen with your Scotch-Brite, wipe it down with that. Good to go. Okay. So this one will just go back together for now and sit on the shelf with my collection of things I've had to work on the thing. Okay, so when I took this apart, I checked everything with this gauge here to make sure that my distance was still good. And that goes right on there like that. That lines right up with the end. And that means that my spacing is still perfect. Which I do have the SDI, is it SDI? Yeah. Plate on there to hold the engine and transmission together. So this is all scuffed up, wiped down, cleaned, weights in it, spring in it, ready to go. So I did wipe those off too to make sure they were clean. So it just slides on there like that. And this bolt right here. You got a bolt, a little centering washer, and another washer on there. You screw that in, and I believe you torque it to 96. Let me double check that. Okay, so the book does say 96 foot-pounds for the primary gear here. And 43 pounds for the secondary. In the secondary, you got to make sure, you got to put in there and make sure that you get it on all the, engaged in all those splines on the shaft, or you could tighten it down and have a real issue. So it's yeah, see, that's not even in there far enough to grab the thread yet, so it's definitely not in the back splines yet. Oh, there it goes on the outside. There it goes. Alright, so you got the back one on, and then the front one on, and then, yeah, you got all kinds of thread to go in there. I've seen some aftermarket tools for in here. They look like they're wide and grab each side and then pry it up instead of that factory one. I'm thinking that I'm gonna try one of those. So I don't have, there's a special tool that can hook over this and hold it. And this, I don't have those, so I use the puller because it's got a flat end on it, and I put it against one of these because it's only 46 pounds and wedge it down against the frame and get my torque. So I'll go get that and put that on. This up here, make sure that stays in there. Yeah, that must be what I did. Okay, so I just ran this down to the cross piece on my A-arm with a sock to protect it. Held that one. And now I gotta remember how I do the other. And I believe I just wedged. And put that in there. Put the sock down here to protect the deal. There we go. Okay, and we got torque there. So the holding tool that they make is kind of similar. It hooks these towers and it has a handle that goes back and wedges. This thing's hard and I figured it ain't gonna bend. I used it the first time and it's kind of stuck. That's the way I do it now. So anyway, those are all on. So I'll just have to clamp a belt and put that on, and y'all know how to do that. Then put the cover on, and we'll be done. So, thanks for watching, and that's how you replace your old worn out primary with a new primary and install new
clutch kit components in it. Everything's all cleaned up, gone through, inspected, put that back together. Hopefully everything works beautifully. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and that like button.